Welcome to Real GM Radio. Dan Favale is here for our fake trade-off before the NBA trade deadline. Let's jump in. Dan Favale is here. You can read him at Bleacher Report. You can listen to his podcast, Hardwood Knocks, that he does with Grant Hughes. And Dan, you have been at the fake trade game for a long time. So I thought you'd be the perfect person to bring on here a week before the NBA trade deadline to pitch some ideas. But before we jump into that, some De'Aaron Fox talk, tell me, what's the secret to constructing a good fake trade? What's the thing that you're looking for? What's the key?
You want to make as many people mad as possible, obviously, so that you get all the vitriol online that people think that you enjoy. The approach to it is I really do try to tackle it from the perspective of I want both teams to say yes, and you invariably, I think, fail among their fan base. But I personally agonize over every detail. My editors get annoyed when I'm talking about second round pick protections because I'm trying to make it as balanced as possible. So I'm trying to get to a point where at least both teams are having a discussion. Obviously, it doesn't always work out given that type of content, though.
I feel like when both fan bases are mad at you, you've figured something out. If it's only one fan base that's mad at you, then maybe it is a little bit one-sided of a trade.
Probably, but I've noticed that, and look, fanatic, I get it, but like they become way too attached to like the 8th and 9th men on the roster, or think that those guys are going to get them way more than they ever would. And so that's the biggest struggle I have. And the other thing, and I guess we shouldn't expect fans, I'm not even trying to be condescending here, but I've noticed that they don't seem to care about first round picks. And so it's like if they read a trade, it's like, why would we want these guys? There's no names in there. And it's like, well, you're getting 2 first round picks, one of which is like unprotected in 2029, and that should have a lot of value. So you try to ignore the reactions, but I have noticed, I don't know if maybe it shouldn't be incumbent on fans to think that way, but if it's only based around the picks rather than like they're not getting a player or a prospect that's super tantalizing, even if it's viewed as a bad trade by the other side too, I've noticed that fans don't seem to care about like the first round picks of it all as much.
Have you ever like mocked a fake trade in a piece and then that fake trade happened?
It has happened, and it was basically the most recent one was the Bogdanovich deal to Detroit is what ended up happening. I did not have Quentin Grimes going out in that deal as like the buffer, but it has happened. But when you're a volume shooter, you're bound to get like 1 or 2 right.
All right, well, we're gonna get into a bunch of more fake trades. Talk about volume shooting. We're gonna be Cam Thomas in this thing. We are going to take a lot of fake trade shots here, and then what we'll do is if one of them ends up being right, we'll clip that one, and I'll pretend like it's the only one. It was the thing that we talked about the entire time. It was like the only one we did. So before we get into that, though, De'Aaron Fox, that's the big name on the market right now. Reported this week that the Kings are listening to offers for De'Aaron Fox. Sounds like he wants to get traded to San Antonio. But do you think that that's the best spot for him? And if do you have some favorite kind of destinations for De'Aaron Fox?
Playing with Wemby is a good spot for anybody, and I like that. I think my favorite part about him requesting a trade there is I think that this is going to start like an onrush of players who want out. I wonder if they're going to push to do it, but like, oh, De'Aaron Fox is trying to get to San Antonio. I need to get there first type deal. So I think it's a really good fit. It's a bad fit in terms of they're not an organization that feels like they'd make a move like this mid-season, let alone when the news comes. Even if they knew beforehand, we're a week away from the trade deadline, basically. If I had to pick a favorite fit, and it's not that we're going to talk about a De'Aaron Fox trade soon, it wouldn't be my favorite fit. I really like him in Orlando, which would be in an organization that, given the salary structure of Franz and Jalen Suggs, Paolo coming down the pipeline, they're also not, we saw this over the offseason, they're not a franchise that acts too rashly. I know he's not the best shooter, but like they need someone else to generate looks. And I think De'Aaron Fox has done enough with his pull-up and step-back three, and then just the ability to play off the ball and get higher quality threes in Orlando from Paolo, from Franz. I think he'd be an interesting fit there. And it's one of those teams where they're there, so you don't want to call them an up-and-comer, but if you put De'Aaron Fox on that team, I think they're a contender.
Yeah, Orlando's almost at the point where they have to start thinking about what's the other thing that we want here and how are we going to kind of turn some of these other assets into the thing that we want. They have like a billion centers who have really stackable salaries. Like, what are we really going to do with that? If they wanted to do it for De'Aaron Fox, obviously they could, but they're kind of right in that sweet spot where they probably have a calendar year to figure it out, maybe a little bit more. But so I don't mind the Orlando fit. I get a little hesitant with Fox's outside shooting. It's just a little too inconsistent with all those guys. But then again, like I think defensively they can hold up around De'Aaron Fox. I think there's some stuff there. But the San Antonio part of this, I understand why De'Aaron Fox would want to go there. Victor Wembanyama, stable franchise. You know, this is, I think when you're De'Aaron Fox and you've been through 8 million coaches in your career in Sacramento, you're probably just looking for stability. And San Antonio has sort of been a pillar of stability for a very long time. He's 27. Victor Wembanyama is 21. Like, I know we think about De'Aaron Fox as being young, and he is, but he's 6 years older than Victor Wembanyama. Are we sure that the Spurs, to your point, like this isn't really the kind of thing they do midseason? And then to do it for a guy who's 6 years older, who is really good, but is this the thing that the Spurs are going to push the chips in for? Is my question. And maybe they don't. Maybe it's not all the chips, but it's like half their stack. And is that what they're going to do with it?
I just had this conversation on Hardwood Knocks where should they wait for a better player? I think that the challenge there is you don't get the Shea Gilgeous-Alexander trades, who wasn't even like included as a centerpiece necessarily. These guys become available right now at De'Aaron Fox's time, where they're either coming up on their third, sometimes fourth contract. They're 27. And it's so you kind of have to live with that market, I think, and not view the discrepancy between Wemby and Fox's age as much. And the other problem, I think, with viewing Fox as not the guy, you need to then identify who the guy is going to be after him, because if you believe Steph Castle or Devin Vassell is going to be the second best player on the title contender around Wemby, I'm as Devin Vassell pilled as anybody. I don't know if I can get that high on him. You're now probably not going to draft them because you're too good because of Wemby. And so it's going to be like, I get holding out this season and it's like, let's get another lottery ticket in the draft or see where our pick lands and go from there. But I think De'Aaron Fox is good enough to where, you mentioned half their stash. That's almost kind of perfect. It's like, all right, so then you keep half your stash, and then either as Fox ages out or you need to go get a third guy, like then you use the other half of your stash on someone else. So I wouldn't encourage them to overpay or necessarily accelerate this, but I've been guilty too many times. Like, no, you should hold out for someone better. And I think what happens if you do that too long, look what happened to the Knicks. Like, they're really good right now, but they gave up everything for someone who's probably never going to make an all-star game. And like, you don't want to be in that situation either.
I think I agree with you. And I have a trade coming up later on that we'll get to that actually does include De'Aaron Fox and San Antonio, but also includes like the second half of that stash also. Because I think if you're going to do it, just go all in. Just don't like halfway it. Okay. Go all in. But we'll get there later. I've probably already teased it too much. But other locations that I like for De'Aaron Fox, Orlando makes sense. Selfishly in Miami, I think that makes a lot of sense too. I also think that we probably have another version of De'Aaron Fox, like put him in a good organization with the support that he needs. And I think there's another level for him to get to, whether or not that's a team like Orlando, San Antonio, Miami. But I was also I was playing around with the trade machine. I'm like, I don't know how many teams really do make a ton of sense for De'Aaron Fox right now. I have some crazy sort of off the wall De'Aaron Fox trades, but I know you have a trade that a De'Aaron Fox trade for a place that we haven't talked about yet too.
Does one of your De'Aaron Fox trades include the Pistons? And please say yes.
I thought about it. I still want to kind of figure out this Jaden Ivey thing, but
that's fair.
And I couldn't, like, the salaries are kind of weird, and I guess it would be mostly picks, like Tobias Harris with Ivy and some other stuff with picks. But no, I didn't have the Pistons. That was
also, what's tough about all this before I get into my trade? What are the Kings going to do? I think we all know what they should do, and that is start over. Like the front office, like they screwed this up, but are they going to? I would almost guess no. And so it's okay. Well, what teams have the return where I'm viewing it through the lens of like, okay, picks and maybe a prospect. And they're probably like, well, who can get us to like the 9th seed in the West or something like that?
Well, when you say start over, does that also mean then, okay, we're going to trade Sabonis, we're going to trade Rosen, we're going to do all of it?
Unless you disagree, and I know Sabonis has had a fantastic season, and I've become like a Sabonis defender, as I think people just view him as overrated. I do view De'Aaron Fox as their best and most important players, even with sort of the not noisy on-off splits. And so if you take him off this team, I've seen some people posit that they could get better. I've yet to see a scenario. Most of the people don't even list them out, which is another problem. But what is the player that you could target, that you could envision? Like, are they better if you just sub out? And there have to be other salaries going up. Like if you just throw Zach LaVine and reunite him with DeMar DeRozan, are the Kings better without De'Aaron Fox in that? In a playoff setting in terms of like playmaking and shot creation, I wouldn't I wouldn't
No.
necessarily think so. So that's fascinating to me. Like if you're trading De'Aaron Fox, I would start over. Like Keegan Murray can stay and everybody else needs to go, but I don't think Sacramento's going to do that.
So I toyed around with the idea. I didn't go so far as to try to find Sabonis trades, but I think you're right because this team has a really hard ceiling with Sabonis and Fox. So I guess that's why people would say, well, maybe you can get better. No, I'm with you. Fox is the guy. That's the scorer. We've seen him in a playoff setting. That guy is a playoff scorer. And so if I'm another one of these teams that's looking for one of those guys, that's what's attractive to me about De'Aaron Fox, even though we've only really seen it for less than one series because he ended up getting hurt in that Warriors series. But
Right.
The idea of starting over for Sacramento is that's so depressing after being like out of the playoffs for 2 decades.
Right?
And yeah, and they're never going to do it also because they don't want to lose their jobs. So, but it does sort of feel like, okay, we're going to trade De'Aaron Fox. We're going to, I guess, elevate Malik Monk sort of into that spot, depending on who we get back for Fox. And then it's DeRozan, it's Malik Monk, it's Sabonis, and we're probably in the play-in tournament still. And that just might be what the Kings do. And I know that they're going to be on the treadmill of mediocrity, but they've been off the treadmill of mediocrity for so long. Like they can afford to burn some calories on that treadmill. It's okay. It's okay. And then figure it out later. But any other organization, I would say, yeah, if you're going to trade De'Aaron Fox, you might as well just start all the way over. But I don't know. I also don't really have a good pulse for Kings fans. Like, are they after a couple of years of competing ready to be like, yeah, we could go back to tanking now. We're okay with that.
I think they might be more open to anything if it was at least the Kings fans that like, and like the people who cover the team and the bloggers, like if they cleaned house and like you got a new front office and they made the head coaching decision, they decided, hey, we're going to try and straddle this line, they'd be more comfortable with it. But I think I would guess that they're all probably so fed up with what is this year 3 or 4 of like the Kings having the same roster needs. And then this summer, they finally do something like kind of big. Aside from, they got Sabonis in the first place midseason, but they do something kind of big. And you understood the logic in a vacuum of DeRozan, but it was just sort of like, oh, so Malik Monk is now enough with De'Aaron Fox leaving, but he wasn't enough with De'Aaron Fox there. Like you had to go get DeMar DeRozan. So my guess would be that they would probably be similar to Knicks fans in like years past. They'd be, I think, more open to a reset than the current front office in Sacramento, right. I bet.
Yeah, you would need a new front office, a clear vision, and all those things, which are probably not happening because that's why De'Aaron Fox is potentially leaving here. So tough for Sacramento right now. But give me your De'Aaron Fox trade.
So I have him going to a destination that's not talked about, the Warriors. And okay. I tried to straddle a bunch of different boxes here where the Kings are getting picks and players who would help them now. The Warriors are actually getting out of the tax, and that means the Detroit Pistons are involved. So this comes with I'll lay it out like this. This comes with a caveat too. I don't know. It would have to be done on February 5th because that's when Dennis Schroeder can be aggregated. And I don't know. And I don't know if you've seen or heard anything. He got injured the other night. I saw him leave the game. So I don't know what his status is, but I have Dennis Schroeder going to Detroit, who could use another ball handler, like to get Cade Cunningham off the ball a little bit more with Jaden Ivey out for the season. The Warriors would then get De'Aaron Fox, Keon Ellis, and Alex Lynn. And the Kings get Andrew Wiggins, Brandon Podziemski, Kevon Looney. And you have to figure out the pick equity from there. Golden State can trade up to 3 if you consider that, the 2030 is so interesting because it only goes to Washington if it's 21 to 30. So like if you give them it, if it's 1 to 20, if I'm the Kings, I count that as a first.
Yeah.
And if the Warriors are so good, like you just roll that dice. I don't know if you need all 3 of those first and you can include some swaps, but that is the structure for me.
So if I'm Sacramento, I'm getting Podziemski, I'm getting the picks, and I'm getting
You're
some
getting
salary.
The player you probably should have gotten, like not him specifically, but you're getting the wing that fans have been pining for how many years now.
Right. I don't hate that. And so then if I'm Golden State, then it's De'Aaron Fox, it's Steph Curry, and it's Draymond for me.
Yeah, and you still have Kuminga there, so you have to feel like, okay, what is he going to cost? And you kept Moses Moody, who I never watched that guy play and think, oh yeah, he really should have inconsistent minutes that he had for so long. He's obviously a little bit better this year. So it's a gamble on their part, but I'm very much in the camp of like, if you're not, you could say you don't want to mortgage the future, but like De'Aaron Fox is actually a bridge into a post-Steph era still. And you can't convince me that Jonathan Kuminga or Pods is that right now.
I'm with you on Kuminga and Pods. I kind of hate and love this trade at the same time. Like, I don't think that this necessarily raises Golden State's ceiling. Like, this doesn't make them a championship contender. I've got a million questions in one about a De'Aaron Fox and Steph Curry backcourt and how undersized this team would be. But then at the same time, I don't think that trade is out there that elevates Golden State to championship status again. So if you're telling me I get the 27-year-old De'Aaron Fox, yes, I'm losing some of the draft picks, but this is not a situation where we're trading for Jimmy Butler or trading for one of these older guys and mortgaging the future. We're securing our future by getting De'Aaron Fox. He can learn from Steph Curry and then obviously from Draymond, who is a point guard unto himself most time, and Steve Kerr obviously being there. And we can sort of elevate De'Aaron Fox into being our next star, and we're just sort of hanging out, having a good time, playing good, fun basketball, and probably being a little bit better than what our record is right now, right? Like there's just so much talent on that roster, even if the fit is a little weird. I'm kind of into it. I'm like, yeah, let's get it. This is that's the real way to do the 2 timeline thing.
Do you know what the number of picks would need to be, like from your end, like for either side of the spectrum, where it's, I think the Pistons, if Schroeder's healthy, might just say, hey, getting him like to just use for the rest of this season, they might not mind doing that. So I don't have like anything else from them. But like with Sacramento and Golden State, with Golden State, if you include all 3, you get queasy, right? If you're including all 3
Sacramento,
with
you have that. Like the last place I think the Kings want to trade De'Aaron Fox to is the Warriors.
Division. Yeah. So
and like right down the road too. Like that organization whose shadow you've been in for so long. The only way they would do it is I think all the picks. Otherwise they would just send them anywhere else.
And for me, if I was running both of these teams, if all 3 picks are on the table, it'd be easier for me to do it as Sacramento than as Golden State. Like I'd be trying to get, I mean, if you don't have to include any swaps, maybe there's that upside for Golden State. But if I'm Golden State, I'd be trying to be like, let us keep 2025 and we'll include 2 swaps or something. But you can also structure because you mentioned they're small, but this guy's small too. Like you don't even need to include Kevon Looney in this deal. So like the Golden State could keep him. They wouldn't duck the tax then at that point. And if you viewed him as someone you could use as a vehicle to go get like a bigger body, which they would still need after this. Not a team I've seen mentioned. And I think that I think there's been a lot of performativeness on their part when you look at the players they pursued. So I wouldn't expect them to get involved, but I would kind of be here to watch Fox and Steph just because we know what Steph can do off the ball.
It'd be great. I would probably ask for Kuminga if I were Sacramento, just in the off chance that like he ends up being a star for us and then we can make Golden State look stupid, because I don't want to overstate the pettiness between the 2 organizations. But I do think that there is, I think it's that Don Draper meme where like the Warriors don't even think about the Sacramento Kings, but the Kings are always kind of thinking about the Warriors. Okay. And we would be devastated as the Kings if we traded our star player. But if there was a small chance where, and maybe it's Podziemski, and we heard how Joe Lacob feels about Podziemski, so maybe that's the guy. But if I can get the guy who you would be most upset about losing, whether it was Kuminga or Pods, that's the one I want if I'm Sacramento. But I like the idea here. I like the framework. It's creative, and it would be really interesting.
It's funny. I would prefer, the wing structure, and I know Kuminga's not a wing, but if you're giving up Wiggins and now you have like GP2 and Moses Moody shouldering a lot defensively, I would probably still prefer to give up Kuminga over Pods if I were the Warriors, just because I don't want to pay Kuminga's next deal. I know he's shown flashes, but I just kind of like as a one-on-one score, I just don't know how much value he'll consistently provide outside of those moments. And I wonder if Sacramento would want to pay him, because like all of a sudden he's going to be expensive after this year. But I feel like there could be a framework there if Golden State wanted to get involved, was more so my point.
Yeah, and the point you made before too, that they've become one of these teams like the Lakers and the Knicks and the Heat, where just big name X is on there, and you know that this team is going to call. The Warriors have kind of gotten into that territory, but interestingly enough, have not been in on any of the De'Aaron Fox noise. Even if we've heard the Lakers, we've heard the Heat, like the teams that we usually hear about this stuff, have not heard from the Warriors. So maybe they're being sneaky here. I don't know.
Or they're waiting for the waiting for Giannis stuff is funny, because I guess unless he forces his way there, like they're in a weird spot. They're never going to have the best package for anyone at that level. Like there's always going to be teams with better stuff that they'll offer.
If they had De'Aaron Fox, they can flip Fox for Giannis in a year or two. They got to think ahead. All right. Fake trades. I tiered mine. You didn't, but doesn't matter. We've put together a bunch of fake trades. We're going to get to as many as we can here. So my 3 tiers, and maybe we'll figure out where yours fit in or not, but I don't even know how important that is. But I have like some crazy tiers where I have the craziest tier. Well, I'll start with the first tier. I call it the Gafford zone. This is just stuff we see happening, makes total sense right away. Yep. That team needed that. That team needed that. Call it in. Easy. I have 3 Gafford zone trades. The first one, Portland gets Chris Middleton and Milwaukee gets Jeremy Grant. That's the trade. 1 player for 1. Portland gets off the long-term Grant money. Middleton comes in as a vet for a year and a half. Milwaukee just gets, frankly, a better, younger player right now, a guy who can defend, play on the wing a little bit. I know Grant has been in and out with injuries at times this year, but I also, and it's been a down year for him in Portland, but I also kind of chalk that up to Portland's not playing for anything, and neither is Jeremy Grant. Put him on Milwaukee. I think he plays a little bit better. That's the deal. Why is it a bad deal?
I don't know if it's a bad. I mean, the deal would be bad because Grant's money on the books in Milwaukee, but it'd also be funny that Milwaukee's shipping Drew to Portland first, and then they ship
Right.
Middleton back to Portland. I don't know if they're making any friends in those families. I don't hate. I think Blazers or Blazers fans would hate it the most because we're at the point at the beginning of the season. It felt like Portland wanted 2 first-round picks and more for Jeremy Grant, and so to settle for salary cap relief, they'd be eating a lot of egg. But I think that, or they'd have a lot of egg on their face. But I think we're kind of at that point, just because who is the team that's giving up good money and stuff for Jeremy Grant? So
Grant hasn't played well, so he hasn't heard it. Right. He hasn't helped. Yeah.
I wish he could dribble like a little. I know he's improved as like a one-on-one scorer, but like if you're giving up Chris Middleton and presumably be for someone who's like a better sort of shot creator, and Grant's not that, but Milwaukee still does need like more athleticism on defense, and Grant creates enough. We kind of haven't seen it at a high level in the playoffs, of course, but that's fascinating. I don't hate it. I think the Blazers fans would hate it the most, though,
and that's okay.
That's fine.
Yeah, that's all right. No, because you're absolutely right. This idea of, hey, let's start the negotiating window by saying nothing other than 2 first-round picks. Like, okay, cool if you're Portland, but that's like walking into a Porsche store and be like, we'll start the bidding at $1,000, and they're like, what? No, like that doesn't. No, we're not doing that. I do wonder if Milwaukee just called, like they are getting to the point where they have to deal with the Jeremy Grant salary at some point. Portland is a weirdly expensive roster. They got to start figuring this out. Give me one of yours.
So let me see. What does this one? I feel like this one would fall under the Gafford bucket because it's not too spicy. But I have Chris Boucher and Ochai Agbaji going to Dallas in exchange for Kleba, Powell, Omax, Dallas's 2025 first, and then a 2nd-round pick. It'd be Phillies this year, which as of right now, that doesn't look too shabby. So a first, a second, Omax, basically to eat Kleba and Powell to give up Boucher and Agbaji.
So then if I'm Dallas, I get Boucher to add to my front court rotation. I like that. Spaces the floor around Luka and Kyrie. And then I get Agbaji as a guy who can kind of
need like another 3 and D.
Yeah, they need that Derrick Jones Jr. guy. He's shooting like really well right now this year.
Agbaji is, yeah, he's been way better. That Utah giving up on him when they had no wings is very curious to me.
It is. I like that. I like that deal. The picks remind me, it's 1 first and 1 second.
Yeah, and the problem is their same year. So like Dallas has some other seconds to play around with, but like Philly's second, I think might be there, unless you think Philly's just going to be really good the rest of the way. So they could include a different second. I just wonder if Toronto, the team I was most uneasy for, because like now I think Dallas is basically like a Markieff Morris dump away from ducking the tax after this too, which is, but I just wonder if Toronto is like viewed Agbaji as a guy that they want to keep, but he's coming at the end of his rookie scale cycle, so he might be more gettable maybe than we're thinking.
That was kind of my next point here, because you get Omax here, and that kind of resets the clock a little bit on defensive leaning wing with some offensive potential there. If I'm Toronto and I'm getting the picks, I don't see why not. Like, to me, if I'm the Raptors, none of these guys are untouchable, right? Like, once you get off the pass of Scotty Barnes and all in that group, like
he might be the only who is.
He might be, yeah. I guess
is anyone else really untouchable on that role? I guess Grady Dick, if you really want to go that far. Right. I don't know.
Untouchable to a point, right? Like no star player is going to force his way to Toronto where Grady Dick would be on the table. So he's almost, for Toronto, he's basically untouchable. I don't know. RJ Barrett's been kind of good for them.
The playmaking from him is not anything I saw coming while he was in New York. Didn't see it.
And he likes it there. So that's sort of a big thing. But yeah, I mean, to your point, I don't know that anybody is untouchable. But yeah, I don't mind that at all. And Toronto's one of those teams, though. They're in that weird spot of, do we think we're going to be good next year? Like, are we going to make like that Pistons leap where we're starting to get back into the play-in mix next year? Or are we going to do like the Utah Jazz thing where, no, let's just kind of keep punting on guys because none of these guys are the it factor that we're looking for, and kind of keep resetting the clock on this and keep accumulating draft picks. That's the one thing I can't figure out with Toronto. It's like, what exactly is the plan here?
And they're not the Blazers in terms of we're wondering, oh, does Portland have enough room beneath the luxury tax next year? They have a ton of room there, but like they have all these guys signed to their second contracts now, or in Pirtle's case, his third, that are not cheap. And so it's just
Right.
a weird space to like you can't call this year, you can call it a gap year, but I don't unless they're gonna move some of the quickly Barrett and and or Pirtle, I don't know that we can call them rebuilding either.
Right. Right. No, that's exactly right. And so do they do something that kind of brings them down in payroll and kind of puts them in that rebuilding area? Or look, Scotty Barnes is also going into his fourth year, whatever it is. So now it's all right, we got to start kind of building up. So I think they're in the building up phase, but if you're able to get a couple of good picks and stuff like that to move off of some of these guys, then maybe it is worth it. I got another Gafford zone one. The Chicago Bulls get Isaac Okoro and Jordan Niang, and the Cavs get Nikola Vucevic. And I don't know if I like this. This is another one where I was just trying to figure out where I can send those guys as a package. Chicago's defense is really bad. They need wings. Those guys kind of help a little bit. And if they're trying, I know they're trying to move off of Vucevic for draft picks, or at least that's what it sounds like. But if I can get a couple decent role players, maybe I think about it. Who fit? Maybe I think about it. And then if I'm Cleveland, the one guy I was trying to figure out for them is who can take those like token Tristan Thompson minutes every
Right.
once in a while that are going to be problematic in the playoffs. Probably in the playoffs, you just play Mobley and Allen a lot more, and there are no Tristan Thompson minutes. But then you're pretty vulnerable to one of those guys getting hurt, and then your entire system just going down if you're the Cavaliers. I think that this would be a luxury trade, but it would be sort of what the Raptors did in 2019 when they traded for Marc Gasol, understanding that, yeah, probably don't need this guy, but he could also put us over the top. Not as dramatic in that sense, but for I kind of like the Vucevic fit in Cleveland. It's just another big body who's reliable, overpaid probably for what his role would be in Cleveland. But again, first world problem. That's exactly what you're looking for the Cavaliers, and you're standing where you are.
I don't know if I could do that's an interesting because I know and Jordan Niang's been good this year, but I don't think he has a ton of value for them in the playoffs. But how much value would Vooch have in the playoffs, even if you wanted to limit the Thompson I guess you're always huge because you could in theory play him because of his shooting this year with either of them. I just so you're moving like your best or second best wing defender. And so it's like that's now it's all Dean Wade, like needs to check everybody. And with Vooch on the books next year, as Jared Allen and Evan Mobley begin new deals, that's a lot of money tied up in three centers. I
Yeah.
think it'd be tough from their end to do.
Would you swap? Well, and that's why I didn't want to include Karis LeVert, because his money is at least expiring. So at least you have that coming off the books if you don't re-sign him. So I admittedly, this is the last one I came up with before we got on here, and I was just trying to figure something out. Like the Cam Johnson stuff makes sense to me, but that's already been out there. But it feels like they just need one more guy who can fill those minutes. It doesn't necessarily have to be a center, but the Niang minutes, the Tristan Thompson minutes, like, is there a guy out there who can kind of, who's a little bit of a 4, a little bit of a 5, who kind of fits with all those guys? That's what I would be looking for if I were Cleveland.
I think that's the right call for them. And I do have a trade with them. I don't think belongs in this bucket just because of the asset equity involved. It's a little bit spicier than that. But I agree that that's like it's weird to say that they could use like just a different type of reserve big when they have Evan Mobley and Jared Allen, but that and then like the wing stuff that you mentioned for sure.
Do you have any of the, jalapeno level spicy ones that you want to get to? Or I have one more that fits into this bucket.
Yeah, I think this one probably fits that I have belongs in the Gafford bucket. So we'll just keep using the Bulls. The Bulls get Bones Highland, Terrence Mann, and PJ Tucker, and the Clippers get Lonzo Ball and Torrey Craig.
Ooh, okay. Sell me on Lonzo on the Clippers.
They need another guy who can generate shots for everybody else. He won't do it in the half court, but he'll get you up and down the floor. He can space away from the ball. He'll continue to play reasonable defense. Can't play him a ton, but they're so deep. And I think there's value because one, the Clippers do duck the tax, but I think there's value. They're probably not going to be a team, maybe they would, that could afford him outright in the summer. And so like having his bird rights rather than like, oh, we can re-sign Bones Highland if we want to, I think would have value to them. I don't think he's like because the playmaker or kind of shot maker that they need. I don't know that they have the assets to get. But I love his fit like around Kawhi and James Harden, or just as like a second unit driver of the offense.
Yeah, this is like a pumped up version of what Russell Westbrook was able to do for them in doses, where he was able to speed him up every once in a while and just kind of relieve the reliance on the half court offense. I don't hate it. Lonzo in LA, obviously that's a fun story. I feel like Harden and Kawhi would just look at Lonzo and be like, "Why are you going so fast, dude?" Like, like it would just be like, "Come on, slow it down." I worry about that. But for Chicago's perspective, I don't mind this as a vehicle to just get Terrence Mann.
Yeah, just like
Especially if you think Lonzo's gone after the year. Yeah.
And like you said, they kind of need wings, and he's small, but like the one bankable part of his game is probably his defense. Like his offense is just waxes and wanes.
I got one more for you. It's in the Gafford area. This is a Lakers trade. They get Bruce Brown and Kelly Olynyk. Toronto gets Rui Hachimura, Gabe Vincent, Jared Vanderbilt, like the three guys. And then one of those picks, probably 2029, 2030, whichever one, like I just let Toronto pick. But it might be too much for me if I'm the Lakers. Like, do I really want to give up one of those valuable firsts for Bruce Brown on expiring and Kelly Olynyk? I don't know, but like then again, what are we really doing here? It's at least two high-end role players who would enter the rotation right away and basically answer the two things that I think the Lakers need, which is front court help. Kelly Olynyk could theoretically play next to Anthony Davis, so you're able to kind of, okay, Anthony Davis, we heard you. You want another center? Here you go. And then they needed perimeter defense in a very bad way. And Bruce Brown, we know, has done it at the highest level, playoff guy. And both of these guys are starting to play well and developing a little bit of chemistry together in Toronto. So you almost just sort of take that, relocate it in LA, and it's like, okay, like this is something that we've seen work together, and now we just get these guys and just sort of implant it into our roster.
The value going out each way in that deal is right. I just don't think the Lakers could justify giving up an unprotected or even just a distant first round pick and getting back Kelly Olynyk and Bruce Brown, who just like has barely played this year and hasn't necessarily been great when he's been on the floor. And that's the problem with them, though, is that their matching salaries don't have value, or they're not. Right. None of them, I guess, are toxic, but like teams are going to view taking on the extra year of Gabe Vincent, the extra couple years of Jared Vanderbilt as that's part of the value we're providing you. So that's right from Toronto's end. It's weird. I don't think you could get that deal done with any less if you're the Lakers, unless Toronto could really like Rui, who's been pretty good on offense. So if I'm the Lakers, I couldn't do it, but the value going out seems right.
That's the weird part about this trade, right? That's why I said, like, I don't know if you could do this if you're Lakers, but this is the only way Toronto takes it. It's the only way they do it. So it's a weird one. And it's the kind of trade that I think everybody on the planet wants the Lakers to make, and only the Lakers don't want to do it. And I don't know if that makes it the right thing or the wrong thing. It's just an observation.
It would be funny, though, if Anthony Davis is begging for a big and they go out and acquire a big that doesn't really make life any easier on Anthony Davis. Like, presumably he wants his life to be easier on defense, and Kelly Olynyk isn't going to help him there.
Right. They could be like, this is what you were talking about, right? And he's like, no, not even close. Like, and you're like, oh, okay. Well, we already sent out the first round pick, so sorry. All right. That's the Gafford zone. Going into the next tier, I call this the Tyrese Halliburton tier. All right. Okay. So this is inspired by the Halliburton for Sabonis trade. Shocking at the time, but does make sense after thinking about it for a little bit more, and might even take like a year for it to kind of come into the vision, right? Like to kind of see it. So this is the Halliburton tier. My first one, and this might be my favorite trade. I've got Oklahoma City getting Norm Powell, and the Clippers get Isaiah Joe, and just how many picks? Because it doesn't matter. Like here's 4 first-round picks. Give us Norm Powell. It doesn't matter if you're Oklahoma City. They have a million of them. I would go 3 or 4 first-round picks to the point where the Clippers just say, we love Norm Powell, but we also, like, in a sober moment, we know what we are as the Clippers organization. We're kind of just biding time until whatever it is that happens next. It's like kind of turning the page on the Kawhi era eventually in a couple of years. How do we say no to 4 first-round picks from Norm Powell? It almost would be malpractice for them to do that. So, and the salaries work. And so you can get, if you're the Thunder, Norm Powell as sort of that 5th guy. I think he's a bucket. He is a, he's a fire alarm from beyond the arc. You have to close out on him. It's sort of the one thing I feel like Oklahoma City is missing. And he could be tough defensively, like when he really wants to be. And in transition, he's great too. So I love the fit of Norm Powell in Oklahoma City. And I think these are the kinds of trades that could potentially be out there for them because they don't really need the picks, but they have so many of them that they can kind of unlock doors. They have keys that unlock doors that nobody else has.
That's so interesting. I don't know how many first round picks I'd go, and I really do like Isaiah Joe. Uh, it's just so unthunder like to do that, but they could be the team that. And would it be? What is the Clippers like? Where are they at right now? Because like they're all better than we expected, and there's definitely a downgrade in terms of scoring going from Norman Powell to Isaiah Joe. But if you're getting even multiple first round, like if they included the Philly pick this year and then like another pick, like you would have to think about that
Right.
if you're the Clippers. That guy, I never. Norm Powell on the Thunder he's fantastic. That would be great. Wow, I love that for Oklahoma City.
Right. And you would literally have to overpay to the point where it's a deal that the Clippers can't refuse. And if I'm the Clippers right now, this is the time to start trading these guys. We're better than we thought we were. We got off the Paul George contract. We don't really have long-term money that we're super worried about, but we can start thinking about what the future is. And as good as Norm Powell has been for them, and he has been so good, he's not like a core piece of what they have going forward. I don't know that any of these guys necessarily are. And maybe now's the time to start moving these pieces and start figuring out what's next, as opposed to, hey, like we're better than we thought. So these guys have a little bit more value on the market than maybe anybody anticipated. Like maybe we jump on this now.
Yeah, I mean, we're not far removed from people thinking that Norman Powell was on a bad deal. Like that was kind of
Right.
like the thing entering the season. It's like, oh, his contract's not great. Like they're totally screwed. So if 3 first round picks are on the table with Isaiah Joe, there's no way you can turn that down. You
Right.
can't. It would be so irresponsible of the Clippers to turn that down.
I love it. I love that you love it. All right, give me one.
So this, now that you describe this bucket, this makes me think it belongs in the other bucket, the Gafford bucket. But
Okay.
so it's the Lakers getting Zach LaVine, and they're sending out like it has to end up
All of it.
being, yeah, it's Rui, it's Gabe, it's Jared, it's Jalen Hood-Schifino, and then take your pick. Like, can you get there by using Christian Wood or whatever? So you need to rope in a third team, but I am including an unprotected 2029 pick to get it done. I love him on the Lakers even more following the D'Angelo Russell trade.
Yes, great point. This is the one that it should be in the Gafford zone because it makes so much sense. Why would you not do this? Because the other thing that I like about LaVine in on the Lakers is not only is he a fit right now because he's playing well, he's a good locker room guy, right? He's not going to shake things up. I think he'll be very comfortable just being like, all right, it's LeBron and AD, and then it's me. Like, yep, I'm the third wheel here, and I'm good with that. I think he'd be totally fine with that, which was sort of the issue with some of the other people that they've brought in the past. So, not only that, but when LeBron is gone, LaVine and Anthony Davis still makes a lot of sense. Just those two to build around, right? To a degree. And so this is one of the ones where I understand a lot of the times if you're the Lakers and you do have to protect your future to a degree.
Mhm.
If you could actually get LaVine for one of these first round picks, if it's both picks that Chicago is asking for, then I understand saying no. But if it's the one pick, it's almost malpractice to not do it. If this is actually on the table, if hey, we'll give you all the guys, all these contracts. Is Chicago cool with all these contracts coming over? Is another question. But if you could actually get this done, you should get this done if you're the Lakers. There's no question.
Yeah, I just don't. I mean, there's like, dude, you would game it to like to balance out the rosters. Like Torrey Craig has to go back. Like he probably
Mhm.
plays for the Lakers. So it makes a ton of sense. And I know Reeves has been playing really well on the ball, but like Zach LaVine's level of shooting just on and away from the ball they don't have that on this
Right.
roster.
And he's long. I know he's like not good defensively, but there's at least body length there, and that kind of stuff does matter, especially on like a LeBron team where you just want to surround him with length and shooting. That's really all
And
you ever want.
I know AD won't be happy about this because he'll be the center, but like AD, LeBron, Austin Reeves, Dorian Finney-Smith, and Zach LaVine as your starting and closing five. Like that's
Sign me
what is
up.
the lineup how many top lineups in the West are better than that? Like maybe 2.
Yeah, and now you're getting to the point where you're able to go out there and just outscore teams. And then we know what LeBron is defensively in the regular season, but when we get to the playoffs, I still think LeBron has another gear to go defensively in the postseason. You get defensive player of the year caliber Anthony Davis, more engaged defensively LeBron James. You have Dorian Finney-Smith there. Those guys can cover up for Reeves who competes, but there's just an inherent, limitation there. And then LaVine, who Like, I would love to see him on a team that's actually playing for something. I think he's never going to be a great defender, but could he be 20% better than what he is now? Absolutely. Like in the right environment, playing next to LeBron and Anthony Davis, some of it with him is just effort and ball watching and just sort of falling asleep on stuff. Like, get him in the right environment. Maybe they can that's actually playing for something. Maybe that stuff kind of goes away a little bit. I like it. I've got a Myles Turner one.
Ooh.
So reports are that the Pacers were listening to offers on Myles Turner, or that the Lakers were sort of looking at Myles Turner. Mark Stein reporting on Thursday that basically the Pacers have turned down all the Myles Turner trades, but they are getting the calls, but they're just saying no. That said, got me thinking. Not Myles Turner to the Lakers, because I really couldn't figure out anything that works there. But what about Myles Turner to the Warriors? I can get Jonathan Kuminga and Dennis Schroeder. So this would have to be done, after February 5th. But Kuminga and Schroeder for Myles Turner, and probably like a pick or something, a protected pick, something going back to Golden State for that. But if I'm the Warriors, then we've been linked to Nikola Vucevic. We've been linked to a bunch of floor spacing centers. Myles Turner is the best one that is potentially out there. Makes a ton of sense for us. And then we get off the Kuminga thing. And then I get Kuminga in Indiana. And I think about what the Pacers need around Tyrese Halliburton. Tyrese Halliburton is a quarterback, and all he needs are downfield threats, right? Like, that's it. Kuminga in transition, playing with Tyrese Halliburton. I've argued this for a very long time. I like Kuminga as a player. He's in the worst possible basketball fit in Golden State. I couldn't imagine a worse team for him to play for than the Golden State Warriors. The Pacers, on the flip side, great basketball fit for Jonathan Kuminga. So I get him if I'm the Pacers, another second draft guy. We love those guys. And then if I'm the Warriors, I get Myles Turner. Fixes a lot of our issues.
I like it for the Warriors. I'd be hesitant as the Pacers, just with Siakam and Jarris Walker there, and now Kuminga's going to get paid, and none of those guys, I guess Siakam can play center, but none of those guys should be your center. I'd be a little worried. But if there's subsequent moves to come, and if you think Kuminga for some reason is going to be cheaper than Myles Turner, I could see making that as the upside play. I don't know what their center, what is Thomas Bryant is then like their main center after that gets tough.
Yeah, you could start playing around. Like, do we send Kevon Looney or Trace Jackson Davis over there for like a fill-in for a while until they figure it out? This would be hey, we kind of think Myles Turner is leaving anyway. Let's just get the asset and kind of punt on this year and then figure out center next year kind of deal for the Pacers.
Yeah, I love Myles Turner on the Warriors. I would normally say it'd be cool to see him on a better team, but at this point, the Indiana Pacers are the better team.
That's true. Give me another one.
So for this bucket, for the Cavs, I have them sending George Niang, Jalen Tyson, Craig Porter Jr., and their 2031 first-round pick to the Portland Trailblazers in exchange for Robert Williams III and Tamani Kamara.
I love this trade. Mostly because I love Tamani Kamara. I love that guy, and put him on a winning team like Cleveland. Forget about it. I love that. And then Robert Williams III is kind of fills the need that I was talking about earlier. I love this trade.
I kind of hate it, but I love Tamani Kamara on the Cavs because it's just like they're going to give up Tyson and their 2031 pick. Like, Tamani Kamara might just be the guy. You get to keep Okoro and Dean Wade, but like Tamani Kamara might just be the answer. Who's the fifth member of your closing five? He can defend at the point of attack. He can defend like traditional fours. It might just be him.
Yeah, I mean, and that's the one pick that Cleveland can trade, and I don't think you can protect it, right? Because it's all the way out in 2031.
You could. It just would extend. Like, so if you did like top 4 protection, and I honestly think I've seen stuff that says like Tamani Kamara and Shaden Sharp are like the only untouchables in Portland. And you and I have covered this league long enough to know that if a franchise is actually thinking that way, they're doomed. Like, Tamani Kamara is very good. He has more value on a good team because he's not going to be the tent pole around what you build. And in the Blazers case, Scoot's been better lately. Donovan Kling is just not that player. He's been really good when he's played. We don't know if Shaden Sharp's that player. Like, they can't guarantee they have that tent pole on the team. So to view Tamani Kamara is like, you're getting Jalen Tyson, a flyer on him, and he showed stuff in summer league, plus a 2031 pick. I guess if you think the Cavs are going to be the best team in the league at that point, but I would appreciate that flyer if I was running Portland's front office.
Normally, I would be really worried about giving up a 2031 pick if I were any team because it's so far out. But if I'm Cleveland, I feel really good just because we are young. Yes, Donovan Mitchell will be in his mid-30s by then, but Garland will still be pretty young. Evan Mobley will he won't even be 30 yet. So I feel pretty good about it. It is a little worrying though that you're kind of giving up the one pick that you have left. So it's like, all right, this you would have
And
to
it's Tamani Kamara at the
right.
end.
You would have to be really comfortable that like even so that's why I haven't even liked the Cam Johnson stuff for them is because I don't think Cam Johnson's that guy. I think Cam Johnson's fine. I don't think he's that guy. I would rather have maybe Kamara on a flyer over Cam Johnson at this point. Understand that Cam Johnson's probably the better player right now, but I'm also just thinking about who projects better going forward and who projects better on this team right now. Kamara's a better hustle player, a better defender than Cam Johnson is, even if the outside shooting isn't where it is with Cam Johnson yet.
And yeah, and Cam Johnson's, if you didn't have to give up your 2031 pick, but you do, like, that might be interesting. But you kind of have, I know they're different, but like, what is the real upgrade in the playoffs going from Max Strus to Cam Johnson at this point? Cam Johnson's probably a little bit better defensively. Max Strus is the better passer if you need him to do that. So I don't know. Like, it doesn't move me. And like, Cleveland's interesting too, because, Ty Jerome's going to be a free agent and you don't necessarily want to take his minutes away. So like they're deep and don't need to make a move, but I would still love to see them. People have been gravitating towards like, oh, they kind of need like an upgrade from Tristan Thompson. I'm like, I love Dean Wade, but he gets banged up all the time. It still feels like they need that like fifth best player for some reason.
We have agreed on that. We just haven't found a trade that both of like that we love yet for them. And that's sort of where they are, I guess. But I've got one more in this Halliburton zone. The Milwaukee Bucks get Nick Claxton and Cam Johnson. Brooklyn gets Brook Lopez, Chris Middleton, and an unprotected 2031 first. So if I'm Milwaukee, I'm getting rid of Lopez and Middleton, who are the key parts of that championship run, but I'm also kind of turning the clock back a little bit. I'm getting Claxton, I'm getting Cam Johnson. Changes the way we play because the Lopez for Claxton swap, but also maybe that's a good thing. Now I can kind of switch everything defensively. I got a bunch of guys who can cover up for Damian Lillard, Giannis, and Claxton as my front court could be devastating defensively in a different way. Probably too much to do mid-season, but I thought it was an interesting thought exercise.
So they don't have to give up a pick for this, or they have to give up the 2031.
They're giving the 2031 pick, to Brooklyn.
I don't know if I could do that. I want to see it happen because I would love to see like because the Nets then turn around and trade Brook Lopez. I mean, like what does Brook Lopez fetch on the open market? I would be more intrigued. Man, I don't, because the 2031 pick is involved. I don't know if I can make the call, but that's not. I think there'll be some Bucks fans that think that's egregious, and it's not. Like just the way that Cam Johnson's very plug and play, probably better defensively than Chris Middleton at this point. And the Giannis Claxton defensive front court, it's different than the Lopez Giannis front court, but it could be better because of that. Just like those two can both guard on the man. I might do it if I'm Milwaukee. I'm not going to lie. I thought when you were first explained, I was like, oh no, I can't do this, but you're getting so much younger. I would do it if I'm Milwaukee. I don't know if the Nets, like that 2031 pick, is that enough for just like getting off of Cam Johnson? But if you think you get more first round stuff for Brook Lopez, you wanted 2 firsts for Cam Johnson. So it's just like, would the Lakers give you a first for Brook Lopez at this point, or another team along those lines?
Yeah, you're probably doing that. You're probably turning this into a 3-teamer, and you're getting Hachimura and a first maybe for Brook Lopez or something. I mean,
if you were getting that 29 first from and you said, I would do it. And on the Bucks, I think I would do this. Maybe I'm too low on Middleton at the moment. Like this is his nadir, but he's at that age too, where that's just the case.
I mean, he went through surgery on both ankles. Like I don't think that this guy's getting better anytime soon. And I actually think Brooklyn would be the team that says no to this, just because they're out here shopping Cam Johnson for multiple picks, and Nick Claxton is. I don't even know if that he's considered available. But to get 1 first round pick for both of those guys, they would be like, what? And that's why I think you would have to move. You'd have to know that you can move Lopez in another deal. But if you're Milwaukee, I think that this would be a slam dunk. Like this would really kind of kickstart the next Giannis window.
This is, I think, the first trade that I can be sure both fan bases are going to hate, which might mean that it's a great trade.
All right, so that's the Halliburton zone. Now we've entered crazy territory. I call this only in 2K. This is only in 2K. This is where the GMs, they don't have to worry about their jobs. It doesn't happen in real life because every GM's job is always on the line. It's too crazy for it to work. But maybe it's crazy enough to work. So I've got a few here, but do you have any crazy trades that you got?
None of mine are going to be. I have one that I've sat on in the past, so I could save that one. None of mine are going to be as crazy enough to fit into this bucket. So we should probably start with you.
So I've got some crazy De'Aaron Fox trades. This is the one I was teasing before. I've got, well, all right.
I'm excited.
I got two warm-up De'Aaron Fox crazy trades, and then I got the big one. So my favorite one is De'Aaron Fox to Dallas for Kyrie Irving. And maybe you get, and you probably get a pick back from Dallas. But if you're the Kings, all right, we got Kyrie Irving. We got a star. We lose De'Aaron Fox, but we got Kyrie. We could still kind of be what we are right now. And for Dallas, you're breaking up Kyrie Irving and Luka Doncic, who get along and you've had a lot of success with. But Kyrie's coming up on needing a new contract. He's also older. He's like 5 years older than Luka is. You can replace Kyrie, get way younger with Fox, and just be like, yeah, so basically we learned from the Kyrie Irving experience that this works. Let's just get a guy who's more in Luka Doncic's window here and extend this thing. And now we've got De'Aaron Fox instead of Kyrie Irving.
I love it for the Mavs. I just with the Kings, and if you're getting Dallas's 2031 first round pick, that's not nothing. Is Kyrie going to stay in Sacramento with that player option?
That's the problem. Yeah.
I would love that for the Mavs, though. Kyrie's been great this year, but like De'Aaron Fox is less of a durability question moving forward for sure.
All right. And then I got one more for you. The Clippers get De'Aaron Fox and LA legend DeMar DeRozan. And the Kings get Kawhi Leonard and James Harden. and they just do that. So the Clippers figure out right away what they're going to be about. We got De'Aaron Fox, and that's our star. We're going to build through him. He's going to play in front of the wall. This is what we're doing. And then if you're the Kings, you say, we don't have an appetite for going back and being bad. We're actually going to do the opposite. You could argue they might be even better in the short term because Harden and Kawhi just make sense there already with the infrastructure that they have. You get off of DeRozan. You're already having to trade De'Aaron Fox. And now if you're the Kings, you get to market Kawhi Leonard and James Harden in Sacramento, I suppose.
I'd be worried about assuming they want Harden and him leaving. And I'm also be worried about like if Kawhi gets traded out of LA, does he just retire? Like, is he even reporting? Like, what's the list of teams where he would actually report to? I'd be curious to see.
All right, so here's the big one. This is a 3-team trade involving 6 players. So what we were talking about earlier, if you're the Spurs and you're getting De'Aaron Fox, what are you really doing, right? Like, is that going to be the final piece? If you're using half of your assets to go get him, what are you doing with the rest of this stuff? So this was the one that I was teasing earlier, and I did kind of steal this idea from Tom Haberstroh, who said, like, if you're the Spurs, why not go like he proposed like the Spurs trading for Steph Curry and liken that to what the Heat did in 2004 when they traded for Shaquille O'Neal to pair with Dwayne Wade. At the time, D Wade was on a rookie scale contract. Go ahead and get the superstar if you think that your rookie scale guy is already ready to compete at the highest level. Victor Wembanyama is clearly ready to compete at the highest level. The guy might be a top 10 player right now, and he's on a rookie scale contract. I love the idea of the Spurs actually going all in, even though I was kind of teasing that I wasn't earlier. But if Wemby is that guy, and he is, we've seen this in the NFL with like the Philadelphia Eagles and stuff a few years ago. Like when your rookie quarterback is on that rookie contract and he's ready to go, build up the rest of the roster, especially now in going back to the NBA now in the second apron world. Like if you got a guy on a market, like you could argue Victor Wembanyama has the best contract in the league right now, right? He's only making like $12 million a year. So you can afford to overpay in other areas. And if you're the Spurs, you also have the assets to go ahead and acquire those guys. Even if you're acquiring them in an overpay, it might be worth it because you already know you have that guy. So I say all of this to say, yep, we're bringing De'Aaron Fox to San Antonio, despite what I said earlier. We're going to trade Devin Vassell and whatever amount of picks it takes to go to Sacramento, right? So we've got 9 tradable firsts if I'm the Spurs. I'm trading all of them probably in this deal. So Vassell goes to Sacramento. I get De'Aaron Fox, and then whatever picks else have to go to Sacramento.
Would you give up Devin Vassell and a De'Aaron Fox trade if like the idea, because now it's okay, well then who's your third guy? Like, do you trust?
This is the other part of it. I'm only giving up Vassell because I liked Haberstroh's idea of getting Steph Curry, but I wanted to be somewhat realistic here. The Warriors aren't trading Steph. So I'm like, who's the best guy that I could get if I put like 5 first-round picks on the table? Could I bail out the Phoenix Suns?
Get Devin Booker or KD.
Yeah, I had Kevin Durant. If I get Devin Booker, even better. But I had Kevin Durant going to San Antonio. He's won 2 championships. He would be the Shaquille O'Neal of this group. I know that he could be that scorer at the top level. So now I'm giving up Keldon Johnson, Zach Collins, Trey Jones, and the rest of the picks. Those goes to Phoenix. So now if I'm San Antonio, I've got De'Aaron Fox, Kevin Durant, Victor Wembanyama, and still I got a bunch of other guys too. Like I could put a pretty good starting 5. The bench is a little flimsy, but then again, I have De'Aaron Fox, Kevin Durant, and Victor Wembanyama, and I could probably figure out the bench with buyout guys or maybe even in the offseason.
So I'm just trying to remember all the players. Is Harrison Barnes still on the Spurs after this?
He is.
Is Julian Champagnie still on the Spurs after this?
He is.
And CP3 is still on the Spurs after this.
And so is Stephon Castle.
I'm sold.
Right?
Is Jeremy Sohan still on the Spurs after this?
Jeremy Sohan is still on the Spurs.
You have to do it. I mean, it verges on reckless when you look at how old Kevin Durant is, but I would do it. But yeah, that's so tough because what are they 12th in the West right now? They probably may end up making the playoffs. Even like midseason trades are always tough because players need to learn how to fit in. But I love it. Like that is the perfect amount of unhinged.
I love Chris Paul staying in Sacramento also because. Or I'm in San Antonio also because I like him just being able to like, all right, hey, De'Aaron, welcome to the team. Here's how you throw an entry pass to Victor Wembanyama. Like, I just like Chris Paul helping to speed up that process that you were talking about. Like, mid-season, let's figure out how we all play together. Chris Paul is sort of the master at figuring that stuff out and coaching that kind of stuff up. And Kevin Durant is plug and play. Like, that'll work out right away.
I would be curious if you could game it with the Fox trade specifically to keep, because I don't know how many picks you said were going to Sacramento, but like if you were going to send Harrison Barnes instead of Devin Vassell and then figure out the rest of the money there, like are you going to include enough picks to where it's I love Devin Vassell. I think he's going to be like an all-star player, but if you have KD and De'Aaron Fox and you kept a lot more of their depth than when I was listening to it. Like it was the 3-teamers just hard to process. Like when you're
it is
listening to them. I love that. That is
so you can swap Vassell out and do Harrison Barnes and Chris Paul, but I'm getting Fox and Durant. I've got Wembanyama. I kind of would I rather have Barnes and Chris Paul? And I think the other way I figured this out is like you would have to give up fewer picks. If you're giving Sacramento Devin Vassell, maybe it's just Devin Vassell and two first-round picks.
If it's fewer better ones, and then also just not that Harrison Barnes is better than Vassell defensively, but like Vassell's offensive, he's so good away from the ball, but his offense, he'll be marginal. You have KD, Chris Paul, De'Aaron Fox, and Wemby. Like Devin Vassell's no longer going to be like a prominent part of the offense.
Exactly. And I think you want the vets. Like I want Barnes, I want Chris Paul. We're going, like the whole idea is we're going for it now. And we've got our guy for the future. And we still have Stephon Castle. So we've got our 2 guys for the future. We could sacrifice the other one and just load up on vets who are ready to win a high level right now.
Is it terrible that I'm more hesitant on the KD aspect of it just because he's the better player than Fox still, but it's like, what is the window here with Kevin Durant? 2 years?
2 years. That's it. It's 2 years. Go for it.
You still just have Fox and Wemby and Steph Castle. Yeah, you're probably fine.
And a first round pick every other year still. So yeah.
I favor it. I like that one. That's going to put, you said that was your last one. That's going to put all my final 3 to shame. So
give me your last ones.
I'll go in reverse order we'll start out not as unhinged. So, well, at least I don't think this is unhinged. Would you do the Nets send Cam Johnson to the Rockets in exchange for Jae'Sean Tate, Jock Landale, so expiring contracts, and then you get the rights to your 2027 first round pick back, which is currently a swap right now because you already got 2 of them back. So now you're regaining control of your 2027 first round pick as well.
And I'm doing that if I'm the Rockets. Why?
To get Cam Johnson. And you can also say, how bad are the Nets actually going to be 3 drafts from now?
I don't know if I love that if I'm Houston. I don't know what Cam Johnson does for me.
That team has no shooting. They won't play Reed Shepherd.
But where does he play? Like Jabari Smith is going to come back. I've got Amen Thompson.
You have to mix and match your lineups, but like he could play the 3 or the 4. I mean, in some lineups he could be there 2, like just because of like the way that they play. And also like Fred VanVleet as that team option. Is he going to be around much longer? I would do it if I'm Houston because you also roll over a salary slot to use in a bigger trade with a player who has like real value too.
That is the part. I don't hate it. I could do it if I'm Houston. It's just enough of like moving deck chairs around that it feels like it works.
So I was actually more worried about the net side of it. Because
Because you get your swap back though. I like
right, so
that
it's like
on the
you
Nets.
regain control of
Yeah.
your own first round pick, but that costs you Cam Johnson to do. Is it worth it?
Yeah. That's like how bad are we going to be at that point? I
You're free
honestly
to
don't
be as
think that
bad as you want, I
all I
guess
know is
then.
my feel for the Cam Johnson thing is if they keep telling us like all we keep hearing is how frothy the market for Cam Johnson is, and that makes me feel like there is no market for Cam Johnson. I don't know. Like it like with all the way that these NBA leaks work. So I don't know if I love it for either team.
That's perfect then. That's the point.
Yeah.
This one, I did not crib it from the Dunked On mock trade deadline because they made me feel worse about this trade because it's almost the exact same, but I had Oklahoma City sending out more. Kenrich Williams, the Philly pick, and then a 2026 first round pick for Coby White.
Ooh, Coby White's interesting.
And you could, if you really wanted to, you could do Ousmane Dieng and then a smaller salary, but like then you start getting like, oh, does OKC want to include Dylan Jones or big Jalen Williams? And it's Kenrich Williams is just save the Bulls a ton of money. If you have a healthy Chet and Isaiah Hartenstein, how much is he actually going to play? And Coby White is like that's what this offense kind of needs is he can play off the ball, but another type of on-ball creator if J-Dub runs into issues against certain defenses.
Yeah, I everything you hear out of Oklahoma City is that they love Kenrich Williams so much, so maybe they do go the Ousmane Dieng smaller salary way to
Would
go.
you do if you're OKC though? I would prefer to give up Ousmane Dieng and probably Dylan Jones, but then you're like, well, that's like 3 first round picks for Coby White. So I would do that. I actually thought Oklahoma City would be less likely to do it.
So I think they have to start figuring this part out, like in consolidating some of these guys. So I think they would probably go that way. They love Kenrich Williams. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm overreading it. Maybe I've just been in Miami too long and just think that like the Udonis Haslams of the world are untouchable. But it's but either way, I like Coby White. I like Coby White because he's got like real range. That guy could shoot 28 feet out. You got to worry about him. Extra ball handler. Defensively, there's some concerns there, but also you could just surround him with 4 amazing defenders at all times. So I'm less worried about it.
I think, and he's cheap next year, and then he's going to
Yeah.
get expensive when J-Dub and Chet and even Shea is going to get more expensive. They're running into that issue anyway, and I'm always team like you figure it out when you get there. Like if you have a chance to, I do think a trade like that, especially if it's Dieng and Dylan Jones, increases their 2025 title odds quite a bit.
Yeah, and that's like real versatility, right? Like you don't think about Coby White as being versatile, but they don't have a guy like Coby White on the roster. And I would say that they probably, if they can get one more sort of ball handlery shooting guy, it feels like they are just like that one bit away. Because when Shea is off the court, we always talk about like Nikola Jokic being like his plus minus and on off numbers and all that stuff. Shea is kind of there too with the Thunder. Yeah. Like it's wild, and they could use one more guy. Jalen Williams isn't exactly there yet as a sort of fulcrum of the offense, just sort of lead dog right now. So if you can kind of split that with Coby White and Jalen Williams, split those responsibilities while Shea is out, and then obviously Coby White could play alongside those two guys too. But when Shea is out and you have both of those guys on the court, I like that. I don't hate that at all. It's similar to my Norm Powell thing. It's kind of like, all right, we kind of need that one other offensive spark plug.
And they have the picks, and I know they think Nikola Topic is going to be that guy, but even like he's not playing this year, and then he's just a rookie.
Yeah, and then like what if he isn't?
Right. Yeah. So my final one, I think at least is worthy of this bucket. I think the other two compared to yours are just terrible. Now, for anyone listening, don't even pay attention to the salaries that are going to Charlotte here because it's all about the picks. But it's Cole Anthony, Mo Wagner, Gary Harris, Jet Howard, and 4 first-round picks. More favorable of Orlando and Denver in 25, and then 27, 29, 2031 for Vasa Micic and LaMelo Ball.
Oh my God. Yes.
Now I am a LaMelo Ball, I guess, optimist or defender. I defend him more than he plays actual defense is really what it is. The health thing's a concern. So if you can get this done for Jet Howard and 3 firsts in salary, I would still do it. Him on the Magic would be insane. Like around Jalen Suggs, Paolo Banchero, Franz Wagner, Wendell Carter Jr., Jonathan Isaac still there after this trade. You still have Tristan Da Silva, Anthony Black. You can insulate him defensively. And he's not going to, first of all, I don't even consider him a chucker right now because who else is going to shoot? Like what he's injured as we're recording this, but even when Brandon Miller was healthy, who else did you want shooting on this team? You put him on a real basketball team. that is someone, even now, he drives an above average offense. And look at that roster. Like when he's on the floor and the offense is above average. So I would love to see him in Orlando within that defensive infrastructure. And he can play off the two other guys you want to have the ball in Franz and Paolo.
What I love about this too is like there's shades of Penny Hardaway, right? Like there's just like, oh, like we're just gonna go like Hollywood Southeast. We're gonna have the most fun point guard in the league. And so I kind of love that. Okay, so this is exactly right for this bucket, right? Because
I'm glad I had
totally
one.
a 2K
that was
trade.
worth it.
But my worry would be, I'm with you. I think I would love to see LaMelo in a winning environment on a team that doesn't stink, because I do think there's something else to unlock there. I think like, okay, is he only taking the one-legged three-pointers now because who cares? Like put him on the Orlando Magic and maybe that stuff gets reined in a little bit. He probably starts playing harder defensively. Maybe he's not overshooting as much. That would be my concern is he going to walk in here and think he's the man? Because this is Paolo's team. And this is also probably Franz's team before it's LaMelo's team.
Right.
So it's what is that going to look like, and how many fights are going to break out in practice? That would be my main concern if I'm the Magic. But at the same time, he fits all of the things that they need. He's also long, and if anybody's going to ever get him to play defense, it would be Jabal Mosley. Like,
and that team, this goes under the radar, and a part of it is like when Paolo's on the floor, run, damn it. Like LaMelo will get you to, like, I don't understand why the Magic, they played a little faster to like kind of start the year and then it faded off. I don't like, it's not like you don't look at them and say that team should be like fast as hell, but you don't look at them and say like, oh, they should be like bottom 2 in average offensive possession time either.
This would be perfect if LaMelo was like 5 years later in his career and was coming as like the jaded vet who just like who's accomplished everything that he wants to accomplish and now just wants to win somewhere and is willing to be deferential and play the right way. Like this would be perfect. But right now at this age, like I get a little queasy about shaking it up too much if I'm Orlando. But I love it. I love that it's a perfect thought exercise.
I'm glad I needed one that was worthy. I'm glad that I had that. That was the one that I was like, am I even going to bring it up? But I was like, when this bucket came up, like, all right, we'll do this one then. That's good.
Let's uncork it here. This was fun. We'll see if any of these get actually done. My guess is my mega one that puts Kevin Durant, De'Aaron Fox in San Antonio. That's going to be the guess for the one that actually happens in real life.
That's the one that if we had to nominate a trade that we can only pick one of these trades that can happen.
And we get to call it in?
Right. I just because I want to see like then the ripple effects like around the league of that happening too. Right. I'm tempted to say your Clippers Kings one though, just because it's just like, well, what would Kawhi do if he's all of a sudden a member of the Kings?
Oh, the soap opera part of it would just be amazing, right? It's just like, well, what's going to happen next, right? I would be like, get a subscription to the Sacramento Bee just to keep up. Dan Favale, you do a great job. Bleacher Report, Hardwood Knocks podcast. Thanks so much for coming on to Real Jam Radio, man.
Thanks for having me. Take care, Wes.